Are you ready?
Yes.
Mr. Matt?
Yes, Prof. We can start.
All right. So today I begin meetings that are going to put the foundation to what we are trying to do, not only in Zambia, but also in Africa. My approach is based on this book that I wrote. It's called The System. Now, most of the time, we jump into life and try to make some meaningful impact without really knowing how the world is structured. And this is not because the fault of ourselves, it's just how the world is structured. It desires to hide important information from those that can benefit from it. The world gives us what it wants us to hear. It tells us where we need to be. And it places us in a place where we can't make any change. We call it status quo. So that's how the world tries to do. Society is innately designed to do that. You look at what you see and you believe that's all there is. And most people, that's all they'll do. They look at what they see and they contextualize themselves into that. And they remain right there. But we come now to a lesson that is going to change the way we view the world. I don't know if you have come across the commandist phenomena or the commandist ideology, which postulates that history is written by the winners. That is patently true. What we read about and what we know is usually from the perspective of those that have conquered. Probably they have conquered in technology, they've conquered in history, they've conquered in politics, they've conquered in academia, and we know for sure, like for us who come from the African continent, they would have even conquered us spiritually, literally colonizing us and enslaving us. Those are the people who also write what we should read, what we should know. They write our history. They tell us this is what happened. Our vision doesn't matter. Sometimes we don't even know who we are. Sometimes they have even changed our names, changed our value systems. Sometimes they have even given us a perspective from their perspective. And many times we embrace those perspectives, but we make them ours. Sometimes we even fight not to change them. If somebody wants us to return to what we could be individually originally, we can even fight them. We can even kill them. Because these become strong blocks in us, strongholds that force us to only lean to the vision of the champions, to only lean to those that conquer us. And that is where we need to begin. We need to start evaluating what systems we follow blindly, who invented them, what was the first design, what was the motive, how have they benefited us? Are we better off following those, or we can be better following something else? Life is about inquisitiveness, introspective questioning. If we stop questioning and asking questions that are probing in nature, we die within where we are contextual. And that's why I put forward the system. In this system, there are 3 types of quadrants. The quadrants are where people are born and they find themselves. I divide those 3 quadrants as the first one is the system builders, or we can call them the system makers. Then the second block or quadrant, we can call it the system maintainers. And the third one are the system grinders. So society is structured in those 3 quadrants. And each one of us are born in one of them. There's no escape. once you are born in any particular place, in any particular country, in any society, and here there's no discrimination. You can be born in Africa or you can be born in North America. It doesn't matter, but your interests, they make the system. They are responsible for its operation. They run it. These are the privileged of society. By default, probably they are born into it, or they moved from one other quadrant into it. But wherever they land into the makers, they are the ones that dominate. They may be called influential because their voice has got more veracity than the voice of the other quadrants. Their mistakes are overlooked sometimes because they have demonstrated some sort of an upper hand. They are usually richer than the other quadrants because they have access to certain societal benefits than others. For instance, they can negotiate their way into riches, whilst others cannot. And these are well-placed quadrants. They are the envy of everyone in any society. And society can be idiosyncratic. By that I mean, society can be small or big, village life or town life, it doesn't matter. But within that confines, there will be makers. Even in the primitive societies, there were makers. There were people that admired and wanted to be in those quadrants relative to their existence. Even in poor countries, not everybody is poor. Not everyone is struggling. Within those struggles, there are those that are more privileged than others. Even in rich countries, not everybody is privileged. You come to North America or to Europe, you might think that immediately you arrive here, you are privileged. No, you are not. Especially if you come from Africa and especially if you are black. You will not be privileged. They will not hand to you dollars or money or privilege. They put you in the quadrant you belong to from the very first go. It's the same when you go to Africa. You go to rustic societies. You enter into a village where everybody looks to be uneducated, but they are looking at you from their angle. You don't belong to the privilege of that village. You get to Lusaka, for example, those of you in Lusaka. Within Lusaka, there is a quadrant system. Some in Lusaka have got a vocal voice and are better educated and better placed than others. Same way if you go to the Copperbelt. The same way if you come here, where I live in in other words, they dominate. You do not simply desire to move out and you moved out. No. They hold you into those quadrants, especially if you belong to the lowest. There's also quadrant system in religion. Religious culture can make others look to be more dominant than others. Others may be more privileged within the same unified round of religion. Some may even think they are more closer to God than others. And that's how society will just label them. They'll be the one society will call upon to make decisions, to do what? It happens in academia. Not everybody is equal. Others within those confines of disciplines might say, oh, this one is more favorable than the other. I remember when I went to the university, it was almost useless to be in the educational department or literature and language. It's like the culture the university had already designed itself to be, first you are more important if you belong to the natural sciences or to the law school or to mass communication or to veterinary medicine. Well, you find there was a sub-culture within that culture. So everybody else from your village will say, we are happy you went to the university, but you come to a rude awakening immediately to arrive. That you are not equal. Not everybody is considered the same in that substructure of the university. The same if you join into social clubs. Some social clubs, they consider themselves to be more privileged and more secretive than others. Some are elitist in nature. They define who must belong to them. You find that in every structure of life. It doesn't lack in any society. The system makers, they are the ones who define success. They will put words and definitions into textbooks and into media what success means. If they say success means to have a lot of money, to them, to that society, that is what is going to define success. The system makers say success means to have a good and coherent family. That's what is going to define success in those whatever. Similarly, the makers also define failure. You have failed if you didn't reach this standard. You are nobody if you can't come to this aspect. So they dominate. They are the ones that give the veracity and the impetus to living, even to dying. The makers die in a certain way. Death is not equal. Although we know that death doesn't respect any person, but the death of the makers has got more gravitas and respect than the death of the nobodies, the others from other quadrants. They have monuments, the makers. They have got tombstones. They die with pomp. It's like they are still alive. It's like they still exist, but the other sectors and other quadrants may not have the same privilege. Even when they die, it's just like the wind blew and they just disappear. They are no longer there. So that is the system makers. Now, unfortunately, in every society, they constitute a very small number, but they dominate by excellence. What do I mean? They might be 5% of the society, but they control probably 95% of the resources and the wealth. That's how society is made. A few privileged control masses. You see, it was because of this thinking that you have got ideologies. People come up with forms of thought patterns to answer certain of these disparities because they are quite gaping in nature. They stare at you, they threaten you. Other people have tried, they fail, so they leave it to the quadrant makers or the system makers. There are quite a few of them, but they control almost everything. They are affluent, they are well placed, they are well connected. They may also be the majority in those so-called desirable professions. They may go to some desirable universities and colleges and schools. They may have mobility, prowess and facets. They may not struggle to do simple things that others struggle to do. They are there. It's important to note that it's not bad to belong to that sector. And it's not bad to admire or aspire to go to those sectors and quadrants. But you need to know first. And that's the reason why I'm laying bare these important facts so that we can change tomorrow, beginning today. We shouldn't just enter there and just throw ourselves there. We must know how and what happens so that tomorrow we can define things better than it is today. So, their creativity process is appreciated more or benefited through those that are in the system makers. The majority of society may be more creative, but they may not benefit from their creative process. Their creativity goes to sustain the makers. Let's move to the second quadrant, where the majority of the people may be found. Probably all of us, or the majority of us listening to me, we may be found in this second quadrant, and these are known as system maintainers. And you can see from the words themselves that these maintain the system. They keep the top people on top, and they keep the bottom people at the bottom because of what they do. all right, and become movements between these others and the lower one. So in the end, most people don't remain in the maintenance system for a long time. Now, as the name suggests, the system maintainers, they keep things the way they are. See, this is very important. The system maintenance, and the word maintenance, the word maintenance means to keep things the way they have always been. That's what is known as status quo. To enshrine it, to bring it the way it is. For example, Africa and Zambia, these countries are not where they are supposed to be because they have to be maintained where they are. You see? So our quarrels are always with small numbers. And our quarrels in our African context and Zambian context, for instance, is about the little that we share from the overall global cake. We share a very tiny percentage, and they keep us there so that we can't move out of that quandary into some form of elevation. Well, we are not there by accident. Zambia is not poor by accident. Africa is not poor by accident. Nothing happens like that in history. History is abusive. In other words, it doesn't abuse or disabuse anybody. It is abuse. Abuse is not the word abuse. So history respects everybody and doesn't respect everybody. Who's better than the Tutsis now? Nothing. There were world wars like the first one in 1914. They killed and massacred each other. What did they achieve at the end? Did Britain become super again? Did Russia become, Tsaristic again? Did Germany gain what it wanted again? Nothing. They had to start from the scratch, worse than before they went into war. What's happening right now in Russia and Ukraine? They are butchered a little bit better than the people at the bottom. In most countries, they may even form the majority. There was an economic system that was developed a few years ago in the 80s that favored the middle class. I think you have heard about the middle class. So they were the upper class, the middle class, and the lower class. Literally speaking, they are sweat out. But those that are lining up, they go back home with buckets full of grain and full of all kinds of, incentives to become even better than those who are grinding. The system grinders, unfortunately, are the victims of the system. The system grinders are the victim of the system. They don't make any progress at all. They can't make progress. That's the word I will use. Because the system is designed to keep them right there where they are. They can't move. They may try, others have tried, to try to rise in that system, but they can't. Here are some of the characteristics that you find in the system grinders. They are the majority in many systems, especially in African systems. They are the majority. They are probably 70% sometimes of the people are system grinders. They just live, exist to die. They have got no purpose. They don't see a future. They count life vicariously through others. So they live to praise others. They are always beating drums, either over a human being or somebody who does something. They are always championing someone who seems to be a little bit different. They are always using words like boss, bwana, the big man, or they are always like tails following. They don't have the leeway of themselves. These are the majority in our societies. They can't think. Their thought pattern has been debased. They can't come up with ideas. Because even if they came up with ideas would be useless. They can't translate those ideas into realities. Most of the time, unfortunately, they may share the idea to a person from the maintenance system or from the maker system, and those ideas end up being the maker's ideas. and they will never come to these people. They know nothing else. Usually they get a basic of education and they don't go very far. Some of them, unfortunately, may even be educated, but because of the position they find themselves in those societies, they can't do anything with their education, so to speak. They are the victims of this cruel and palatable system. And they are the lowest. They are not considered to be even human. In ancient societies, they were even given tags. You know, for instance, they would call them slaves, or they would call them, cowboy, or they would call them, whatever base kind of evaluation you can put on there. Any tags stayed there. In our days, sometimes they are called third world, as we see. For instance, for our continent, Africa, we can't be second. We can't even be second. In Zambia, for instance, we even, and unfortunately, the old system, the way it is formed, these become formalized epithets. You know, the use of the word epithet means an insult that you accept to be reality, right? You live with an insult as if it's a reality. So they would call you third world. You start writing essays about it yourself. Third world. I live in a third world country, but you don't pay particular attention to the word, why am I a third? Why can't I be a second or first? That level of thinking is dead. You accept what the system throws at you. If they throw terms at you that look meaningful a little bit, you simply swallow them. It's a capsule. You just take one and swallow. There's no taste. There's no chewing. Simply swallow it and you have faith it's going to give you some meaningful healing wherever it goes. No, because the system has wired itself that way. That you accept who you are, where you are, and how you are. So that you can't question the system makers, whoever they may be. So that you can't, sometimes you even self-defeatism. Why should I question them when I can't get the results I want? Why can't I also be known as a system maker? And then you look at the possibilities of doing that, and that it looks quite very remotely. Isn't that how they have left some of us in African countries to think that no matter what we do, we can never be like developed countries? We cannot be like the white countries, let me just be blank. Sometimes that's the mentality we have, to the extent that we believe the system and we think everything that a white person does has value, everything that a black person does has no value. It's a mentality thing, and we believe it. So, an uneducated white man can come to Africa today, Zambia, and goes to the United States. The system becomes meaningful if you start to evaluate it in terms of your own life. What do you think about your future? Is it that you can wake up one day like a king or a prince or a princess who literally waits for tomorrow to come because he has got so much resources to plunder tomorrow, to change tomorrow, to review tomorrow, and to manage tomorrow? Or you wake up every morning not knowing that even the education you have or the chances you have right now may disappear tomorrow because unknown forces always haunt you. That is a terrible way in which this system enslaves people's thinking pattern, that they start to believe that what they have and who they are, that's who they are. Look at our situation in our compounds, in our shanty compounds. If you go to these shanty compounds, most of you probably have lived in one of them. I did when I was in Zambia. And I hated it. But I was powerless. Absolutely powerless. So I started to appreciate what the compound brings. I would walk alongside feces and urine and garbage, and people are just throwing things. And I say, what can I do to change this? Probably not. It's like it's a general mentality. Everybody does it. Everybody lives comfortable with it. I would make my meal next to a rubbish bin, and I don't even care. I have even stopped smelling. The smell has disappeared. My health is always cut short by a day every day. In those situations, you can't live longer. Or even if you live longer, it will be with a lot of health struggles. Because although you have become used to your quadrant or to your systematic positioning, the positioning itself doesn't benefit you because you are a very important person whom God gave a human body. You were given a soul and a spirit, just like that person who lives in a mansion alone and clean environs, sleeps in good ventured bedrooms and eats 3 meals a day and sleeps like a baby in the midst of environmentally sound constructions. You are the same as that person. But society tries to say some of you are not as good as that person. You can't be as good as that person. And then it adds characteristics. You see, this is how the quadrant system does. It brings out characteristics. And these characteristics, the majority of them first start with where you were born or where you live. Get it from me. That matters in quadrant system. If you were born black or white or brown or yellow, whatever the case the world has in their little constructive mentality think, then it assigns you already by virtue of your birth and probably of your race to that kind of environment or that kind of living. So you find yourself accepting that as a reality. You find yourself saying, this is where I was born to be. That is not the truth. So you see, if we are going to change a nation, for example, we need to redefine the quadrant systems. And here are the last points I'm going to give today on this management course. And I'll go to chapter 1, principles and levels. The first principle I'm going to give is the principle that in life, on earth, everything has a pattern. Now, that may look to be very usual. You might say, this is what I've heard, probably I've learned even in psychology or sociology or some other ideologies or studies. But everything on earth has a pattern. Okay? The rhythm of life resonates with some sort of a pattern. The first thing you do before you make progress in life is observe the patterns. Observe them. Take a moment. Don't rush in life. Don't be in a hurry. Don't say, I'll do things the way everybody does. No. Slow down and observe the patterns. The patterns of life will give you the permission to change your well-being or even your environment. The patterns repeat themselves and they don't lie. They are always the same. Things happen the same. Look at the seasons, for example. They never fail to repeat themselves. If you live in North America, you're always going to have spring after summer and fall after spring, and you're going always to have summer. Spring is going to be before summer. I beg your pardon. Then you're going to be have fall after before winter. You always have those seasons. If you live in Africa or in Zambia, you are going to have at least 4 seasons. They will repeat themselves, and the Creator of heaven and earth has never stopped even one day to making sure that those systems keep going the same. So God has given us an idea, nature has given us an idea that systems usually don't change very much. They keep the same things going. And we observe the system, we can learn how we can change our way of life and move from one quadrant into the next. Because we can observe seasons. If you are on adventure and you don't know the seasons. You cut your long journey short because you may never know that the winter has come and you are still wearing summer clothes. And then you might die from some sort of cold or influenza. But when you understand the season, you are able to maneuver according to the changes. This is important. Patterns will show us how to change. If we want to change Zambia, for instance, from being a third world poor African country to be a second world or first world rich African country, we have to observe how the systems of economic founders operate, the systems of our history, where we have come from, how it has structured us, why it has brought us to where we are. If you want to change your own station in life, observe what has happened since we are born. If the majority of your family are all poor, or they are all struggling, or they don't have anything, observe that system. The pattern is going to show you whether you are going to be a victim of the same or not. Don't just rush. You are going to find that there will be signposts in the system that you will start to observe. Just like seasons, you'll be able to say, this season is about to come. I need to do things differently. Otherwise, if you don't observe those signs and patterns, you may end up exactly the same as those that went before you. You may try, and there's no lack of trying for the majority of us, but it's just because you are going into it blindly. Don't have a chance to get out of it. Even if you get to your education, even if you get some little money, it will just evaporate, it just disappear because you have never studied the system. How to do things the way, for instance, the system maintainers do. The second thing I'll discuss today in terms of principles, that everything is deliberately or unintentionally influenced and affected by cause and effect. You have heard about that before, but I want to tell you one thing. It happens with nations. It also happens with individuals. Somebody always causes something that affects others. You look at everything else. You look at divine interpretation and structurization. It's the same. Somebody always causes something, or you cause something, then it leads to something else. These principles enable you to see that within that structure that is as a pattern, what causes what and what makes what. For us, if we are going to change our stations and the nature of our country, if we are going to bring people to start believing in ideas, reading and writing, and also changing the foundations of our poverty and struggle, we must have to know what caused this. And we must not be in a rush to do that. You see, when sometimes we sit to write about what caused certain things, especially in economic terms, ourselves become our own weapon against our own destruction. We fight the causes. We try to blame the effects. We don't know that those effects would never have been there in the first place had they not been caused. We overlook the causes, so we want to fix the effects. In the end, we live to fix effects. So we never change. Our economy never changes. Our life station never changes. We ourselves never progress because we live our life just fixing effects. We've never dealt with the cause because when we are fixing effects, other causes are formulating that are going to be the effects we are going to fix tomorrow. You can't move a step forward without fixing what has brought you down. You can't move without addressing those things that made you where you are. You need to address them squarely. And you need to make sure that they are not repeating themselves. You need to make sure that you know them, so if they were to repeat themselves, you stop them. Because if you overlook the causes, you can't successfully fix the outcomes or the effects. In Africa, for example, a lot of our struggles did not start with our forefathers. Our forefathers conquered their environment in their own way. Our problem started probably with those that conquered us. And if we relate and observe things very succinctly, we can see the fault lines and try to avoid them in our negotiations going forward. That is the way we can change that. If we are going to change Zambia, for example, we need to see what are the fault lines that have made us struggle today. For instance, in the last 50 years, we have complained about the same thing. Is that we are not improving. Things are not the way we know they can be. But are we going to find time to address the causes of those systems that have made us complain consistently about what might become tomorrow? That is where we need to go back. If we are in a hurry, if we just jump to conclusions, trying to follow any ideology or idea that comes out there, we will still be fighting those things, God knows for how long.
Oh, God.
And the last thing is, everyone has a place in the system. Everyone. You have a place in the system. But you can migrate from one quadrant to the next. That is the blessing of the quadrant system. Is that no one forbids you from making the migration. If you decide to move into another quadrant, you can do it. We as the movement, we are trying to create that is going to put some social change, bring dignity and respect to our souls and spirits and bodies, and change the lives of those that are around us. We need to make those decisions that says, my place is in the maker's quadrant or the maintenance quadrant, and I'm moving away from the grinders. And as we discuss this management system next week, I'll now build on some of the concepts that illustrates how we can be moving from those. That ends my presentation today. Next week, we will look at the details about those three quadrants so we can exhaust them and then move forward to the next lesson after that.
Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, so now the page I was reading, I have got I don't want to make this a classroom, and I don't want you to remember everything that I said, but I'll work with you. First of all, I've got 5 questions that are relative to actually 8. I'll ask them just as a control system. This is not being recorded, Mr. Martin and Mr.